Welcome into Scoops with Danny Mac on Fox 2. I'm Dan McLaughlin. Tonight we're talking baseball, the greatest baseball play-by-play voices ever in St. Louis Blues hockey. My first guest will be the top position player prospect in the Cardinals system, and that's Nolan Gorman. Recently, he was a part of the Futures game during the All-Star break in Denver, and he's been promoted to AAA Memphis. A visit with Nolan Gorman is coming up. Pat Hughes is the longtime play-by-play voice of the Chicago Cubs, and he has taken a deep dive into the greatest play-by-play voices that baseball has ever seen. How did Jack Buck, Harry Carey, and his newest installment, Bob Costas, become legendary? We'll find out later in the show. Finally, the NHL free agency period is up and running, and the Blues have been busy with a new forward, and I'll have the chance to visit with John Kelly, the voice of the Blues, later in the show. Let's kick it off, though, with baseball. The Cardinals continue their homestand on Tuesday night. The Atlanta Braves are in St. Louis. There's the Budweiser Bash with Bo Hart, Star Wars night as well. Then next weekend, the Kansas City Royals are in town, and that weekend will feature the Cardinals belt giveaway, Whitey Herzog fishing bobblehead, and kids water bottle giveaways all coming up. Well, I have really been looking forward to visiting with my first guest, and that's the Cardinals' top prospect, Nolan Gorman. And Nolan, first of all, congratulations on making it to AAA Memphis. On a personal level, what's it been like playing AAA baseball for you?
It's been fun. Obviously, as of recently, we've been doing really well and, winning a bunch of games. So that's been super exciting. But from the start, everyone is welcoming and, just being up here at this level and seeing, big league arms and different stuff like that. It's been a good challenge and, hopefully just keep it going.
What's the adjustment that you have had to make at AAA, specifically at the plate? Now, I'll get into your defense in just a moment, but specifically at the plate, what are the adjustments at this level?
Yeah, guys, I've said it before, guys are just able to locate their pitches a lot more consistently, and they have a better plan of attack going into the game. So it's more of a chess game up here, and you gotta, be able to adjust to how the pitchers are throwing to you. And ultimately it's, the chess game is just, it keeps getting better and better against better competition. So I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Well, you can imagine here in St. Louis, fans are so curious about what it's been like for you to make a transition as a natural third baseman and going to second base. So you're doing some of that. What has that been like for you defensively?
I've loved it. It's been really fun over there at second base, turning double plays, and, you're in a lot more plays than what you are at third base. So it's been a good transition for me, and it's been, help from Okendo and Stubby and, all the coaching staff. They've made it pretty easy for me, and I've liked it. I've enjoyed it a lot.
How much in spring training was Nolan Arenado helpful for you? You mentioned Okendo, but did Nolan pull you aside and really try to help you out? Yeah,
we would take ground balls at third base quite a bit, and just even watching him take ground balls is helpful. He doesn't even have to say anything. It's pretty incredible just to sit there and watch him take ground balls and how he goes about it. And I think a lot of what he prides his defense on is his footwork and making sure he's in a good position. To field the ball and to throw the ball over to first base. So that was a lot of fun during spring training for sure.
It was great to see you and your best friend Matthew Liberatore make it to the Futures game in Denver. So what was that experience like for both you and your families?
Yeah, that was super exciting. Our families had a great time there. I had probably 16 people there, maybe if not a little bit more. And he had his family, so that was super fun. We had a lot of fun doing it. Obviously, he got to start the game and then sit there for 6 innings, but ton of fun. Colorado was great. The weather was perfect. It was just all around, nothing could be better.
What did you take away from that kind of experience? Whether it's the conversations, or is it a measuring stick for guys that are close to making it? What do you take away from an experience like that?
Yeah, really just, talking to the guys that are in it. There's really all those guys are going to be big leaguers and really good ones. That's obviously why they're there. And, if you could just pick their brains or, just even watching the guys, how they are on the field, it's, that's the biggest thing. You gotta enjoy it. You gotta have fun and enjoy that experience for sure. I think my first year it was kind of, being like the rookie, so to speak, of the Futures game that year. It was more so just enjoying the sights, and this time it was, we're all elite players, and let's go out there and do what we do.
Has it made it a little easier for you in pro ball to be roommates, probably also your best friend from Little League, now on the team in Memphis? Does that make it a little easier on you guys?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of fun with it. We live together, so it's been good going home and talking about the game and what we saw in each other if he pitched that day, and we're always talking about the game, and that's something that from a young age that we've strived to do, is just talk to each other about how we can improve and how we can be better, and work our way up to what our ultimate goal is.
Well, finally, in satellite camp last year, you guys faced off against each other a bunch of times. So who got the best of the other, and how much trash talking was done between you two?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say. I think we both got each other a few times, but it's always fun to face him, and facing that level of competition. He's an unreal pitcher. He's got really good pitches. Left on left matchup. So it's always fun to face him, and we do it to make each other better. We do it in the off season, and it only helps both of us, because while I'm standing there in the box, I'm able to see all of his pitches and exactly what they're doing and how he's feeling that day. So we can sit down and talk after we face each other, and just make each other better.
Hey, Nolan, thanks for doing this. I look forward to seeing you in St. Louis very, very soon.
Thank you.
That's Nolan Gorman. Up next, a closer look at the greatest baseball voices that the game has ever seen or heard. That's next on Scoops with Danny Mac here on Fox 2. Scoops with Danny Mac is brought to you by Schnucks, Lou Hughes, Triad Bank, and Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Welcome back to the show on Fox 2. Well, here in St. Louis, we have had the privilege to hear from some of the greatest baseball play-by-play voices ever. Well, Pat Hughes is the longtime voice of the Cubs, and he has a great appreciation of the craft of calling the game of baseball. Broadcasting, producing it, writing it, he has narrated tributes to the greatest that have ever been behind the mic. BaseballVoices.com is his website, and you'll find remarkable audio of great calls, moments, interviews from those that have provided generations of fans the enjoyment of baseball games. Pat has been kind enough to be a part of the show, and Pat, let's jump right into it. How did Baseball Voices come about for you?
It's an off-season job is basically what it is. Those of us in the baseball announcing business, we have about 4 or 5 months in the off-season. You're always scrambling around to do various jobs. And it was really an off-season job that I was looking for. And I've always loved baseball and broadcasting, and I wanted to improve in that area. So I thought that I would put together commemorative audio tributes to baseball's greatest announcers. I do the producing, the editing, the narrating, and it's a lot of work, but it's very gratifying. The first two that I put together, Dan, as you recall, were Jack Buck and Harry Carey, and the release of those coincided, fortunately for me, in the fall of 2006 when the Cardinals just beat the Tigers in the World Series. So the fans here are very receptive and in a great mood, and they received the CDs very, very well, and that's really how it all began.
And when you think about doing something on Jack Buck, it's so much more than what he did behind the mic, isn't it?
Sure. He was a great public speaker. Everyone loved him here, not just for Cardinal baseball, but He did all kinds of talk shows on the radio, and he did after-dinner speeches. He spoke at every luncheon in town for years and years. And then he did football. He did college football. He did some boxing, in addition to being the great Hall of Fame voice of the Cardinals.
This may be a really tough question for you, but what's been the most enjoyable one that you've had a chance to do?
I would say the Jack Buck was fun. The Harry Carey, because I worked with Harry for a while. I put together one on Bob Uecker. He and I were partners for 12 years. But the latest one that we did, and it's now available at baseballvoices.com, is Bob Costas. And Bob is just an amazing talent. And when you think about Bob, it's obvious, it's given that he's a great baseball announcer. But beyond that, if somebody was to say to you, who's a better broadcaster in the history of America than Bob Costas? And I'm not talking about just sportscasting. I'm talking about newsmen or actors or entertainers or whomever. Is there a better broadcaster in the history of our country than Bob Costas? If there is, Dan, I don't know who it would be.
When you put something, Pat, like this together, how do you find the material? Where do you find it?
Everywhere. It helps if you kind of know what you're looking for before you begin. For example, in the case of Jack Buck, I wanted to include the Ozzie Smith home run in 1985. Go crazy, folks!
Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. It's a home run, and the Cardinals have won the game by the score of 3-2 on a home run by the Wizard. Go crazy.
You kind of look at his career. Who were the great ball players that he covered? Stan Musial, Bob Gibson, just to name a couple, Lou Brock, Ozzie Smith. So you start looking for highlights that he had called with those guys. Then you start looking at the great teams that these broadcasters have covered. The Cardinals, they were in the World Series 3 times in the 1960s, and then again in 1982 they beat Milwaukee. So you focus on those and get some highlights from the special seasons along with the special ball players. But then you start looking at things like humor and the funny stories with Jack Buck. His after-dinner speeches were classic. I loved him, and he was just a lot of fun to be around. So I tried to include that part of his personality as well.
For your job, I'm curious, you've been doing this a long time in the major leagues. Does it help you? You almost pick up traits of others by osmosis. You pick up little things. Has it helped in your broadcasting?
Absolutely, and that's a great question, Dan. Let's take just the call of Dennis Eckersley and Kirk Gibson. Jack Buck made that call in 1988, the classic home run by Gibson. Now, it's 3-2. Gibson fouls off a bunch of pitches. But here's some technique for a play-by-play man. The last words he says right before the ball is hit, he says, "Here's the pitch from Eckersley. Gibson hits a long drive." So, in other words, the pitcher's name goes right into the batter's name. It's a natural transition.
We have a big 3-2 pitch coming here from Eckersley. Gibson swings and a fly ball to deep right field. This has got to be a home run. Unbelievable! A home run for Gibson. And the Dodgers have won the game 5-4. I don't believe what I just saw.
And I find myself using that now in ball games. The pitch from Kimbrel. Molina lines a base hit, or whatever it is. But it's just little things like that I think that I've picked up on, and the various styles and the different tempo that certain broadcasters have. But yes, I'd like to think that it's helped me immensely.
And I'll wrap it up with this. What do you hope the fans get from this? What do you hope they take away from it?
I think I've always loved listening to baseball highlights, and it makes me feel happy to hear highlights from when I was a kid. 40, 50 years ago, I grew up in the Bay Area, with Russ Hodges and Lon Simmons, 2 great announcers, and I thought they were the best who ever lived. But when you're 10 years old, you have nobody to compare them to, so no real reference. As I grew up, I realized they were 2 of the greatest, both Hall of Famers. So I think these are for history. It'll bring back memories. I think it's almost like hearing one of your favorite songs, like the Beatles or the Rolling Stones way back when. You hear that song, and it takes you back to a certain time in your life. So the highlights are fun. They remind you of your favorite players, your favorite teams. The real special thing, Dan, they remind you of a certain time way back when in your life.
Great to see you, Pat. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Speaking of great voices, the Blues play-by-play voice, John Kelly, is next on Scoops with Danny Mac. Scoops with Danny Mac is brought to you by Blue Tail Medical Group, On the Run, Delta Dental, Hair Saloon for Men, and Lordo's Diamonds.
Behind the net, Sutter scores! Ryan Sutter, the save, loose puck, what a poke at it, the score! Pierre Plante has the hat trick. Babic hit on goal, shoots, he scores! Babic gets his 50th of the year. And listen to this crowd for Mike Leout, a standing ovation for two great saves on tape.
Those are the outstanding, great calls that we all love and know of Dan Kelly. And pictured there, a 9-year-old John Kelly, and he has carried on the tradition so well. The outstanding play-by-play voice of the St. Louis Blues. John, when you see that picture, what comes to mind of a 9-year-old John Kelly with Dan Kelly?
Well, you know, Dan, he was not only my father, but my broadcasting idol. So at that age, it was a special treat for me to come up and sit with him in the broadcast booth. And that probably was one of the first times that he allowed me to come up. I got to believe that after the game, we got on a Blues charter and went to Chicago or something. It's a picture that I know that I cherish and my mom cherishes, and I know my dad loves. So I certainly do remember taking the picture, although it was a long time ago, no question.
I hear so much of your dad in you. How much did you pick up from your dad in your call and what you try to do today?
Well, you know, Dan, as a young guy, like a lot of Blues fans, I would lay in bed at night and I had a little black transistor radio and I'd listen to the Blues game. I think a lot of it came from just listening to him night after night after night, year after year. You pick up habits and phrases and the things that he would do. Now, when I decided I wanted to be a broadcaster, Dan, one thing my father did tell me was, you know, don't try to copycat every single phrase that I have. He, of course, was known for he shoots, he scores, and he would say shooting or the drive and things like that. So I intentionally try to steer away from a lot of those phrases. But certainly, I think a lot of the things I do have in my broadcast, I think a lot of it is just naturally from listening to him night after night after night.
You can understand more than anybody else, second generation broadcasters, sometimes they say, hey, I want to get out of the shadow of my father, but I've talked to you about this. You've really embraced it. You're like, no, man, that's my idol. That's the guy I love. That's my dad. And oh, by the way, he just happens to be a great broadcaster. So I embrace it. You've really embraced it all the way through.
Well, I have embraced it. And I think the reason is, Dan, as a young guy, I played hockey as a kid. And like most young athletes, you realize you're not going to go any further than high school or maybe junior college if you're lucky. So I loved the game so much. It was a way to stay in the game, and seeing his lifestyle, you know, going to hockey rinks and baseball stadiums and football stadiums. And I would tag along the older I got. You know, I said to myself, you know, this is a pretty good life and a pretty good lifestyle. So I guess I got the broadcasting bug in junior high, and I wanted to be like him. In my mind, no one will ever be as great as he was as a hockey broadcaster. But I think that's why I just loved his lifestyle and what he did. And I also loved the game of hockey. So it was the natural fit. And I got fortunate, and I've been able to do this for now 30 years in the NHL.
Unfortunately, he did not see the Blues win the Stanley Cup. You got to experience that, but you brought the cup to his gravesite with your family. How emotional was that for you? What did that mean to your family?
Well, I always said that if the Blues did win it and I was alive and I was around, that I would do that if I could. And the Blues and the NHL were so great to let our family do that. And my mother was there, my wife and my kids, my sister was there, and it was very poignant and very touching to me. As a matter of fact, my sister Susan, she brought some audio cassettes, Dan, of some of my dad's calls when he was an announcer for the Blues. So we were sitting there on a beautiful morning around 8 a.m. with the Stanley Cup next to his gravestone and his calls in the background. And it was a very special time, and I'm so glad we got to do that.
And my final question would be, what do you think it would mean to Dan Kelly to know that the St. Louis Blues have won the Stanley Cup?
Oh man, he loved this team. He came in the second year, as you know. The great Jack Buck was the announcer the first year, and as you also know, the Blues made the finals the first 3 years in the league. I always sort of joke that my dad probably thought, hey, this is easy. This is going to happen every year, but it didn't happen again until 2019, as we know. And man, oh man, he would have loved to go down Market Street in that parade and celebrate like all the other great fans. It certainly would have been a great moment for him, no question.
John, I mean this sincerely. You know this. You and I are such close friends. The apple does not fall far from the tree. You are one of the best in sports, one of the best in hockey, and we are lucky, and I mean we are lucky to have you here in St. Louis. Thanks for doing this. Have a great season. I appreciate your time.
All right, anytime, Dan. Thank you for having me.
For John Kelly, Pat Hughes, Nolan Gorman, thanks for being with us. I'll see you next week, 10:30, right here on Fox 2.